Every morning at exactly 6 o'clock, Clara Bennett walked quietly through the side entrance of the Cross estate, her shoulders slightly hunched, her plain grey uniform hanging loosely over her frame. She wore thick, oversized glasses that covered most of her face, her hair pulled back tightly into a simple, unremarkable bun. She moved carefully through the hallways, always keeping her eyes lowered, always staying quiet, always making herself as small and unnoticeable as possible. Clara had worked as a housekeeper for Alexander Cross for almost a year now, and in that entire year she had made absolutely certain that no one within the massive estate ever looked at her twice. She dressed deliberately plain, spoke only when necessary, and avoided eye contact with anyone, especially the powerful. Dangerous man who owned the property she cleaned every single day. It was not that Clara disliked her job. In truth, she was deeply grateful for the steady income and quiet routine it provided. But Clara carried a secret she guarded more carefully than anything else in her entire life. A secret buried beneath baggy clothes, thick glasses, and a carefully practiced habit of making herself invisible. She had not always looked this way. Years earlier, Clara had been strikingly beautiful, the kind of beauty that turned heads wherever she walked. But that beauty had once brought her nothing except danger, obsession, and pain so severe that she had spent the last several years deliberately hiding every trace of it beneath layers of plainness and quiet invisibility. She had learned painfully that being noticed was never safe, that beauty attracted attention she never wanted, and that disappearing into the background was the only way she had ever truly felt protected. That morning, like every other morning, Clara moved quietly through the estate's long hallways, dusting picture frames, straightening furniture, careful and efficient in her work. She had almost finished cleaning the large upstairs library when she heard footsteps approaching. Footsteps she immediately recognized as belonging to Alexander Cross himself. Clara quickly lowered her head further, moving efficiently toward the far corner of the room, hoping desperately to finish her task and leave before he noticed her presence at all. Unfortunately, Alexander entered the library exactly as she reached toward a high shelf, accidentally knocking down a small stack of books that clattered loudly against the hardwood floor. "I'm sorry," Clara said quickly, her voice barely above a whisper, immediately kneeling down to gather the scattered books. "It is fine," Alexander said calmly, walking closer to help her collect the fallen items. Accidents happen. As Clara reached quickly for the final book, her oversized glasses slipped slightly down her nose, and for one brief, unguarded moment, she glanced upward, directly meeting Alexander's gaze. Something shifted instantly in his expression, surprise and quiet curiosity flickering behind his usually composed, controlled features. Clara quickly looked away, embarrassed, pushing her glasses firmly back into place and standing quickly, gathering the remaining books tightly against her chest. "I apologize again for the disturbance," she said quickly, moving swiftly toward the door. "Wait," Alexander said suddenly, something in his voice carrying quiet, genuine curiosity rather than simple annoyance. Clara paused nervously, her heart pounding anxiously as she turned back toward him, keeping her eyes carefully lowered. "Yes, Mr. Cross?" Alexander studied her carefully for a long moment, something thoughtful and searching behind his dark eyes. "Have we spoken properly before?" he asked curiously. "I realize you have worked here for quite some time, yet I feel as though I know almost nothing about you." Clara's stomach tightened uncomfortably, nervousness and quiet panic building steadily within her chest. "There is not much to know, sir," she said quietly, keeping her voice carefully controlled. "I simply do my work and try not to disturb anyone." "That much is certainly true," Alexander said, a small, curious smile briefly appearing on his face. "I have never once heard a single complaint about your work. Clara, in fact, I barely notice you are here at all, which, considering how thoroughly this house remains cleaned, is rather impressive." Clara felt her cheeks warm slightly at his unexpected observation, though she remained cautious. uncertain exactly how to respond to this unusually direct attention from a man who typically maintained careful distance from his household staff. "Thank you, sir," she said quietly. "I will let you get back to your reading." She turned quickly to leave, though Alexander's voice stopped her once again. "Clara," he said gently, "you do not need to rush away so quickly. I'm not upset about the books." Clara paused hesitantly, glancing briefly back toward him, uncertain and nervous beneath his unexpectedly kind attention. "I appreciate that, sir," she said carefully, "but I still have several rooms left to clean today." Alexander studied her carefully once more, something curious and thoughtful lingering behind his gaze, though he nodded understandingly, allowing her to leave without further questioning. "Of course," he said gently. "Thank you, Clara, for everything you do around here." Clara nodded quickly, relief flooding through her as she hurried from the library, her heart still pounding anxiously from the unexpected, unusually personal interaction. She rushed toward the nearest supply closet, setting down her cleaning materials carefully, taking a moment to steady her racing thoughts. That brief, unguarded glance, the moment her glasses had slipped, revealing clearly the true depth and clarity of her eyes, had unsettled her more deeply than she wanted to admit. For a fleeting instant, she had seen something unexpected reflected within Alexander's gaze. Not simple curiosity, but something closer to genuine recognition, as though he had glimpsed something significant beneath her carefully constructed disguise. She shook her head firmly, reminding herself sharply of the painful reasons she had spent years perfecting her careful invisibility. Being noticed was dangerous. Being truly seen was even more dangerous. She could not allow herself to forget the painful lessons that had taught her so thoroughly to hide. Later that evening, as Clara prepared quietly to leave the estate following her long workday, Marta approached her gently, her expression curious and thoughtful. "Mr. Cross mentioned you today," Marta said carefully, studying Clara's reaction closely. Clara's stomach tightened nervously. "Oh," she said quietly, keeping her tone carefully neutral. "I hope everything was satisfactory." "He seemed curious about you," Marta said gently, "which is unusual, considering how rarely Mr. Cross expresses personal interest in anyone working here." Clara's nervousness deepened further, though she carefully maintained her composed exterior. "I'm simply doing my job," she said quietly. "There is nothing particularly interesting about me." Marta studied her carefully, something knowing and gentle behind her thoughtful gaze. "Perhaps," she said softly, "though sometimes, Clara, the most interesting people are exactly the ones working hardest to remain unnoticed." Clara said nothing further, quickly gathering her belongings and making her way carefully toward the estate's exit. Marta's gentle observation lingering uncomfortably within her thoughts throughout her quiet walk home. She had spent years perfecting her careful invisibility, ensuring no one ever looked closely enough to notice anything beyond her plain and remarkable exterior. Yet something about Alexander Cross's unexpected attention that day had unsettled her deeply. An unfamiliar warmth, mixing uncomfortably with old, painful fear. She reminded herself firmly, walking quickly through the quiet evening streets toward her small apartment, that she could not, would not, allow herself to be truly seen again. The last time someone had looked at her that closely, that curiously, it had ended in devastating heartbreak and danger she had barely survived. As Clara finally reached her small apartment that evening, exhaustion and quiet unease settling heavily over her, she glanced briefly toward an old photograph hidden carefully within a locked drawer. A photograph capturing clearly the beautiful, vibrant young woman she had once been. Before everything had changed so devastatingly, she closed the drawer quickly, pushing away painful memories firmly, reminding herself once again of the careful, deliberate invisibility she had worked so hard to maintain. Yet despite her firm resolve, Clara could not entirely shake the unsettling warmth she had felt earlier that day. The surprising, unexpected way Alexander Cross had truly seen her. If only for one brief, unguarded moment, she had no idea that this single, unexpected moment of genuine recognition was about to change everything she had carefully built to protect herself, drawing her steadily, inevitably, toward a dangerous, unexpected journey she had spent years desperately trying to avoid. Clara barely slept that night, the memory of Alexander's searching gaze lingering uncomfortably in her mind. By morning, she dressed with even more care than usual, adjusting her oversized glasses carefully, pulling her hair back into an even tighter bun, reinforcing every layer of the careful invisibility she had spent years perfecting. As she walked through the estate's side entrance that morning, she promised herself firmly that she would avoid Alexander entirely, keeping strictly to her assigned duties, ensuring no further unexpected interactions occurred between them. Yet despite her careful planning, she found herself glancing nervously toward the library as she passed, half expecting, half dreading another unexpected encounter. Thankfully, the morning passed quietly, Alexander occupied with important business meetings throughout most of the day. Clara worked steadily, grateful for the uneventful routine, slowly allowing her earlier nervousness to fade. During her lunch break, Clara sat quietly alone in the small staff kitchen, eating her simple meal in comfortable solitude. Marta entered gently, sitting down across from her with a warm, understanding smile. "You seem tense today," Marta observed carefully. "I am fine," Clara said quickly. Though her tone lacked genuine conviction, Marta studied her carefully, kindness and quiet curiosity behind her thoughtful gaze. "Clara, I do not wish to pry," she said gently, "but I have worked in this house a long time, and I have learned to recognize when someone carries a painful past." Clara's stomach tightened uncomfortably, old fear resurfacing rapidly beneath Marta's gentle observation. "Everyone has a past," Clara said carefully, keeping her voice controlled despite the anxiety building within her. "That is true," Marta agreed softly. "But not everyone works so hard to hide theirs completely." Clara remained silent, uncertain how to respond, though something about Marta's genuine warmth made her feel unexpectedly safe. Safer than she had felt discussing her past with anyone in a very long time. "It is a long story," Clara finally admitted quietly. "I have time, if you are willing to share," Marta said gently. "Though I understand completely if you prefer to keep it private." Clara hesitated, full pain and cautious trust warring within her. Finally, she spoke quietly, her voice trembling slightly. "Several years ago, I was engaged to be married," she began carefully. "My fiancé became increasingly possessive, increasingly controlling, though I did not recognize the danger until it was almost too late." Marta listened carefully, compassion clear in her expression, as Clara continued slowly. "Painfully, he became obsessed with my appearance," Clara explained quietly. "He wanted me perfect, always beautiful, always dressed exactly as he demanded. When I finally tried to leave him, realizing how dangerous and controlling he had truly become, he did not accept it easily." "What happened?" Marta asked gently, though concern was clear in her voice. "He stalked me for months," Clara admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "He would appear unexpectedly wherever I went, watching me constantly, making it impossible to feel safe anywhere. Eventually, I changed my appearance completely, hoping desperately he would simply lose interest, unable to recognize me anymore." "Did it work?" Marta asked softly. "Eventually," Clara said quietly. "He stopped following me once I became someone else entirely, someone plain and unremarkable, someone unworthy of his obsessive attention. But the fear never fully disappeared. I've spent years now deliberately avoiding anything that might draw unwanted attention again." Marta reached out gently, placing a comforting hand over Clara's. "That explains so much," she said softly. "I am deeply sorry you endured something so frightening." "Thank you for listening," Clara said quietly, unexpected relief flooding through her at finally sharing her painful secret with someone she trusted. "Please do not mention this to anyone, especially not Mr. Cross." Marta studied her carefully, understanding clearly the vulnerability behind Clara's quiet request. "Your secret is safe with me," she promised gently. Though Clara, I do not believe hiding forever is truly the answer to living safely. Clara considered her words carefully, though old fear remained firmly rooted within her. Perhaps not, she admitted quietly, but it is the only way I have found to feel genuinely safe again. Later that afternoon, as Clara continued her quiet, careful work throughout the estate, she unexpectedly encountered Alexander once more, this time within the estate's expansive garden. He was seated quietly on a stone bench, reading thoughtfully, appearing more relaxed and approachable than his usual controlled, composed demeanor within the house. Clara hesitated nervously, considering quickly turning back to avoid another unexpected interaction. Though Alexander noticed her presence immediately, glancing up with a warm, genuine smile. "Clara," he said gently, "please join me for a moment if you have time." Clara hesitated further, though something about his genuine warmth made refusing difficult. Cautiously, she stepped closer, keeping her eyes carefully lowered. "I do not wish to disturb your reading, sir." "You are not disturbing anything," Alexander said kindly, gesturing gently toward the empty space beside him. "Please sit." Clara sat down cautiously, maintaining careful distance, her nervousness clear despite her attempt at composure. "Is there something you needed, sir?" she asked quietly. Alexander studied her carefully, genuine curiosity and warmth behind his thoughtful gaze. "I simply wish to know you a little better," he admitted honestly. "You seem to work incredibly hard, yet you remain remarkably distant from everyone around you." Clara's heart pounded anxiously, old fear resurfacing rapidly beneath his unexpectedly personal attention. "I prefer to keep to myself, sir," she said carefully. "It makes things simpler perhaps," Alexander said gently, "though I wonder if it also makes things lonelier." Clara glanced up briefly, surprised by his unexpected perceptiveness, quickly lowering her gaze again beneath his searching eyes. "Loneliness is safer than the alternative, sir," she said quietly, immediately regretting her unintended honesty. Alexander studied her carefully, something thoughtful and gentle behind his expression. "What alternative are you referring to, Clara?" he asked softly. Clara hesitated, panic building steadily within her chest at having revealed more than she intended. "It is nothing, sir," she said quickly, standing abruptly. "I apologize, but I really must return to my duties." Alexander watched her carefully as she hurried away, concern and genuine curiosity clear behind his thoughtful gaze. He did not fully understand yet exactly what painful history Clara carefully concealed beneath her plain and remarkable exterior, but something instinctively told him her careful invisibility hid something significant, something far deeper and more complicated than simple shyness or professional discretion. That evening, as Clara hurried nervously toward the estate's exit, anxious to escape the uncomfortable vulnerability Alexander's unexpected attention had stirred within her. She failed to notice a car parked quietly across the street, its headlights briefly illuminating a figure watching carefully from within the shadows. Clara walked quickly toward her apartment, unaware entirely of being watched, her mind still preoccupied anxiously with Alexander's unsettling perceptiveness and her own unintended vulnerability. She had spent years perfecting her careful invisibility, yet something about Alexander's genuine curiosity threatened dangerously to unravel everything she had worked so hard to protect. Little did Clara know, the shadowy figure watching quietly from across the street carried its own dangerous, unsettling connection to her carefully hidden past, a connection that would soon threaten to shatter completely the fragile safety she had struggled desperately to maintain. Over the following weeks, Clara found herself unexpectedly drawn into more frequent, quiet conversations with Alexander, small moments occurring naturally throughout her workdays that gradually began chipping away at the careful walls she had built around herself. Despite her initial resistance, something about his genuine patience and quiet respect for her boundaries slowly began easing her deeply rooted fear. One afternoon, while Clara carefully dusted shelves within the estate's expansive library, Alexander entered quietly, settling comfortably into his favorite reading chair. He glanced up after a few minutes, watching her thoughtfully. "You seem more relaxed lately," he observed gently. Clara paused briefly, considering his words carefully before responding. "Perhaps a little," she admitted quietly, surprising herself with her own honesty. Alexander smiled softly, genuine warmth clear behind his expression. "I am glad," he said sincerely. "You deserve moments of genuine comfort, Clara." Clara felt her cheeks warm slightly, unfamiliar happiness stirring gently within her chest despite her lingering caution. "Thank you, sir," she said softly. "Alexander," he corrected gently, a small, encouraging smile appearing briefly. "Please, call me Alexander, at least when we are alone like this." Clara hesitated, old caution warring against unexpected warmth. "Alexander," she finally said quietly, testing the unfamiliar informality carefully. Their conversations continued gradually deepening over subsequent weeks. Alexander patiently avoiding overly personal questions, instead allowing Clara space to share only what she felt comfortable revealing. Slowly, she found herself opening up more naturally, sharing small details about her life, her interests, even occasionally laughing softly at Alexander's surprisingly dry sense of humor. One evening, as Clara prepared quietly to leave, following a particularly long work day, Alexander approached her gently near the estate's entrance. "Clara, I have a small favor to ask," he said carefully. "There is an important dinner tomorrow evening, a private gathering with close business associates. I would greatly appreciate your assistance in preparing the details." Clara hesitated nervously. "Of course," she said quietly, "though I typically avoid attending such gatherings directly." "I understand completely," Alexander said gently. "I'm simply asking for your help preparing everything beforehand. Nothing more." Relieved slightly, Clara nodded in agreement, though nervous curiosity lingered quietly within her regarding Alexander's unusually direct request. The following evening, Clara arrived earlier than usual, carefully overseeing preparations for the private dinner, ensuring every detail met Alexander's exacting standards. As she carefully arranged flowers within the elegant dining room, Alexander entered quietly, watching her work with quiet admiration. "You have a natural talent for this," he observed warmly. Clara smiled softly, genuine pride flickering gently within her. "Thank you," she said quietly. "I have always found comfort in creating something beautiful, even in small ways." Alexander studied her carefully, something thoughtful behind his gaze. "Clara, may I ask you something personal?" Clara tensed slightly, cautious uncertainty returning briefly. "You can ask," she said carefully, "though I cannot promise I will answer." "Fair enough," Alexander said gently. "I simply wondered, have you always dressed this way, deliberately plain, deliberately unnoticed?" Clara's breath caught softly, old fear and unexpected trust warring painfully within her. She considered carefully how much to reveal, finally deciding cautiously to share a small piece of truth. "Not always," she admitted quietly. "There was a time when I dressed quite differently." "What changed?" Alexander asked gently, genuine concern clear behind his careful question. Clara hesitated, vulnerability clear behind her tired eyes. "Someone from my past," she said quietly, "made being noticed extremely dangerous. Hiding became the only way I felt truly safe." Alexander's expression shifted instantly into quiet concern, protective instincts clearly stirring behind his thoughtful gaze. "I am sorry you experienced something so frightening," he said gently. "You do not have to explain further, Clara, unless you wish to." Clara studied him carefully, gratitude and unexpected warmth building steadily within her chest at his genuine understanding. "Thank you for respecting my privacy," she said softly. Their quiet moment was interrupted gently by Marta entering carefully to confirm final dinner preparations. Clara quickly composed herself, grateful for the timely interruption, though Alexander's genuine warmth and quiet understanding lingered comfortingly within her thoughts throughout the remainder of the evening. Later that night, following the successful dinner event, Clara prepared quietly to leave the estate. exhaustion and quiet contentment mixing gently within her. As she stepped outside into the cool evening air, she paused suddenly, an unsettling sense of familiarity washing over her unexpectedly. She glanced around carefully, though nothing appeared immediately alarming, only quiet darkness surrounding the peaceful estate grounds. Shaking off her uneasy feeling, she continued walking steadily toward her usual bus stop, though the uncomfortable sensation of being watched lingered persistently within her mind. Unbeknownst to Clara, hidden carefully within the shadows nearby, a familiar figure watched intently, his eyes narrowing sharply as he studied her closely, recognition slowly dawning behind his calculating gaze. After years of careful searching, he had finally located her again, and this time, he had no intention of allowing her to disappear so easily. The following morning, Clara arrived at the estate as usual, unaware entirely of the danger quietly closing in around her. She greeted Marta warmly, settling comfortably into her usual routine, unaware that her carefully guarded secret and the fragile safety she had worked so desperately to build was about to be threatened more seriously than ever before. As Clara worked quietly throughout the day, Alexander found himself unexpectedly troubled, an unfamiliar unease settling uncomfortably within him, despite lacking any clear explanation. Something about Clara's carefully guarded vulnerability the previous evening lingered persistently within his thoughts, quiet concern building steadily as his protective instincts stirred uneasily, though he could not yet clearly identify the source of his growing unease. Alexander moved quickly, gathering his most trusted men to investigate Daniel Foster thoroughly, determined to understand exactly what kind of threat he truly posed. Clara remained anxiously nearby, fear and gratitude mixing uncomfortably as she watched Alexander's protective, focused determination take control of the escalating situation. "What have we learned about him?" Alexander asked seriously, addressing his lead investigator. "Daniel Foster has no significant criminal record," the investigator reported carefully, "though he has a documented history of restraining orders filed against him by 2 previous partners, both citing severe stalking and harassment. This is not his first time doing this," Alexander said grimly, glancing toward Clara with quiet, protective concern. "No," Clara admitted quietly, guilt and fear evident in her trembling voice. "I did not realize others had suffered similarly, though I'm not entirely surprised." Alexander studied her carefully, compassion softening his controlled expression. "None of this is your fault, Clara," he said firmly. "Daniel's obsession and cruelty belong entirely to him." Over the following days, security around the estate intensified further, guards carefully monitoring Clara's movements. Ensuring her safety remained a constant priority. Despite the added protection, Clara grew increasingly anxious, unable to fully shake the persistent fear that Daniel's threats carried genuine, dangerous intent. One afternoon, while Clara worked quietly within the estate's garden, attempting briefly to find calm amid the mounting tension, Alexander approached gently. Sitting down carefully beside her, "You seem troubled," he observed softly. "I keep thinking about what he said," Clara admitted quietly, anxiety clear in her tired voice. "About hurting you or forcing me back into his control. I do not know how to stop him." Alexander reached out gently, taking her hand carefully in his. "You do not have to face this alone anymore, Clara," he said firmly. "I am here, and I will ensure your safety completely." Clara studied him carefully, warmth and quiet gratitude building steadily despite her lingering fear. "Thank you," she whispered softly. "I do not know how I would face this without your support." Their tender moment was interrupted suddenly by one of Alexander's guards, rushing urgently toward them, his expression alarmed. "Sir, we have identified Daniel's current location. He is staying at a hotel downtown, though our surveillance indicates he has been closely monitoring Clara's daily movements." Alexander's jaw tightened with controlled fury. "Increase surveillance on him immediately," he ordered firmly. "I want to know his exact plans before he has any further opportunity to act." As tension mounted steadily throughout the estate, Clara found herself increasingly anxious. Old fears resurfacing painfully despite Alexander's unwavering protection. That evening, as she prepared quietly to leave under careful guard escort, her phone buzzed sharply once again. Another unexpected message flashing urgently onto her screen. "I see you have found new protection." "Clara, impressive but temporary. I know exactly who you truly are beneath your careful disguise, and soon everyone else will know as well." Clara's breath caught sharply, dread and fear crashing violently through her entire body. She quickly showed the message to Alexander, panic evident in her trembling hands. "He is threatening to expose me," she whispered anxiously, "revealing who I truly am, what I look like beneath this disguise." Alexander studied the message carefully, controlled anger evident behind his darkened eyes. "He wants to force you back into vulnerability," he said grimly, "stripping away the safety you have carefully built." "What do I do?" Clara asked desperately, fear overwhelming her completely. Alexander considered the situation seriously, determination hardening behind his thoughtful gaze. "We do not let him control this narrative," he said firmly. "If Daniel intends to expose you regardless, perhaps it is time you reclaim your own identity on your own terms, rather than allowing him the satisfaction of forcing your hand." Clara hesitated, fear and cautious consideration warring within her. "I do not know if I am ready for that," she admitted quietly. "You do not have to decide immediately," Alexander said gently. "But Clara, hiding indefinitely has not stopped him from finding you. Perhaps reclaiming your own strength openly and confidently could be a more effective way to finally take back control." Clara studied him carefully, uncertain yet increasingly drawn toward his gentle encouragement. "Will you help me?" she asked softly, vulnerability clear in her trembling voice. "Always," Alexander said firmly, warmth and genuine devotion clear behind his steady gaze. 2 days later, Alexander organized a private security meeting, carefully strategizing how best to confront Daniel directly, ending his dangerous obsession permanently. As preparations continued, Clara made a quiet, courageous decision, removing her thick glasses carefully, allowing her hair to fall naturally, revealing gradually the striking beauty she had spent years hiding beneath careful disguise. When she appeared this way for the first time before Alexander, his breath caught sharply, admiration and quiet astonishment clear behind his widened eyes. "Clara," he said softly, "you are absolutely stunning." Clara blushed nervously, vulnerability and quiet strength mixing together as she stood confidently before him. "I'm tired of hiding," she admitted softly. "Daniel does not get to control who I am any longer." Alexander studied her carefully, admiration and fierce protectiveness clear behind his warm gaze. "You have always been beautiful, Clara," he said gently, "inside and out. I am simply honored you finally feel safe enough to show the world who you truly are." As Clara embraced her newfound courage, Daniel's obsession only intensified further, his surveillance growing increasingly reckless and desperate. That very night, as Clara prepared to leave the estate confidently, without her usual disguise, Daniel made his boldest move yet, appearing suddenly and dangerously close to the estate's entrance. His expression twisted with dangerous, possessive desperation. "Clara," he called out sharply, stepping directly into her path, "you cannot hide from me any longer, and you cannot escape what we are meant to be together." Clara froze instantly, fear and fierce determination clashing violently within her as she faced her tormentor directly for the first time in years. Alexander rushing quickly to her side, his expression fierce and protectively determined. "Daniel," Alexander said sharply, positioning himself firmly between Clara and her stalker, "you need to leave immediately, or face serious consequences." Daniel's eyes narrowed dangerously, obsession and desperation clear behind his unsettling gaze. "This does not concern you, Cross," he said coldly. "Clara belongs with me." "Clara belongs to no one but herself," Alexander said firmly, his voice carrying dangerous, controlled authority. "And I will not allow you to threaten her safety any further." Daniel stood rigidly, his eyes flickering between Clara and Alexander. obsession and wounded pride mixing dangerously behind his tense expression. "You do not understand," he said sharply, his voice trembling slightly with barely restrained anger. "Clara and I share something you could never comprehend." "What you shared," Alexander said coldly, his tone carrying quiet, dangerous authority, "was fear and control disguised as love. That is not a relationship worth reclaiming." Daniel's jaw tightened, desperation flashing behind his unsettling gaze. "She's mine," he insisted, stepping forward slightly. Though Alexander's firm presence immediately blocked his path completely. "She belongs to herself," Alexander repeated firmly, "and I suggest you leave immediately before this situation escalates beyond your control." Clara stood slightly behind Alexander, her heart pounding violently, though something unfamiliar and powerful stirred within her chest, courage slowly overtaking her earlier fear. She stepped forward carefully, standing beside Alexander rather than hiding behind him. "Daniel," she said firmly, her voice steady despite her racing heart, "I am not afraid of you anymore. You do not control me, and you never truly did, not really. I only allowed fear to convince me otherwise." Daniel's expression flickered with surprise, clearly unprepared for Clara's newfound confidence and defiance. "You have changed," he said quietly, uncertainty briefly flashing behind his obsessive gaze. "I have," Clara confirmed firmly. "And I am done hiding from you, Daniel. I am done letting fear control my life." Daniel's expression hardened again, desperation and anger overtaking his brief uncertainty. "You cannot simply walk away from what we had," he said sharply, his voice rising with barely controlled frustration. "I already have," Clara said calmly, though her voice carried unmistakable strength and resolve. "And I will continue walking away for as long as it takes for you to finally understand." Alexander's guards moved quickly, positioning themselves carefully around Daniel, ensuring he understood clearly the seriousness of his situation. "You need to leave now," Alexander said firmly, "and you will not return here again. If you attempt further contact with Clara, legal and more immediate consequences will follow swiftly." Daniel glanced nervously toward the guards surrounding him, clearly recognizing the seriousness of Alexander's warning. Reluctantly, he stepped back, though his eyes remained fixed intently on Clara, obsession still lingering dangerously behind his tense expression. "This is not over," he said quietly, though his voice carried noticeably less confidence than before. "It is over," Alexander said firmly, his tone leaving absolutely no room for further argument. "If you return, you will face serious legal consequences, and I promise you, my resources far exceed anything you could possibly imagine." Daniel hesitated another moment before finally retreating, disappearing quickly into the darkness beyond the estate's gates. Clara watched him leave, relief and lingering anxiety mixing powerfully within her exhausted body. "Are you all right?" Alexander asked gently, turning immediately toward her, concern clear behind his protective gaze. "I think so," Clara said softly, her voice trembling slightly despite her earlier courage. That was terrifying, but also strangely empowering. Alexander studied her carefully, admiration and quiet pride clear behind his warm expression. "You were incredibly brave tonight, Clara," he said sincerely, facing him directly, refusing to back down. "That took genuine courage." Clara smiled softly, exhaustion and quiet pride mixing gently within her. "I could not have done it without your support," she admitted honestly. Over the following days, Alexander ensured additional security measures remained firmly in place, carefully monitoring for any further sign of Daniel attempting contact. Though tension lingered cautiously, Clara found herself slowly settling into a newfound sense of confidence and safety, gradually embracing her authentic self more openly with each passing day. One peaceful evening, as Clara sat comfortably within the estate's garden, no longer hiding behind oversized glasses or plain, unremarkable clothing, Alexander joined her quietly, admiration clear behind his gentle gaze. "You seem happier lately," he observed warmly. "I am happier," Clara admitted, smiling genuinely. For the first time in years, I do not feel like I am constantly hiding from the world. Alexander studied her carefully, warmth and genuine affection deepening steadily behind his thoughtful expression. "Clara, I must admit something," he said softly. "From the very first moment I truly saw you, that day in the library, I recognized something special, something genuine and beautiful beneath your careful disguise." Clara's cheeks warmed gently, happiness and quiet vulnerability mixing warmly within her. "I recognized something special in you as well," she admitted softly. "Your patience, your genuine kindness, despite the dangerous world you navigate daily." Alexander reached out gently, taking her hand carefully in his. "Clara, I care for you deeply," he said sincerely. "Beyond simple protection or professional obligation. Genuinely, completely." Clara's heart swelled warmly at his heartfelt admission. "I care for you deeply as well, Alexander," she said softly. Happiness and genuine affection clear in her voice. Just as their tender moment deepened further, one of Alexander's guards approached urgently, interrupting gently but seriously. "Sir, apologies for the interruption, but we have received disturbing news. Daniel Foster has been arrested, attempting to access another woman's residence nearby, using tactics disturbingly similar to those used against Clara." Clara's breath caught sharply, horror and relief mixing uncomfortably within her. "He tried this with someone else?" she asked, shock evident in her trembling voice. "It appears so," the guard confirmed grimly. "Authorities are currently investigating thoroughly, though this incident should ensure serious legal consequences finally follow." Alexander's expression hardened with quiet, controlled anger, though relief was clearly evident as well. "This confirms clearly," he said firmly, "that Daniel's obsession and danger extend far beyond simply targeting you. Clara, justice will finally hold him accountable." Clara nodded slowly, relief and lingering unease mixing powerfully within her exhausted heart. "I hope this finally ends his cycle of harming others," she said quietly. Alexander squeezed her hand gently, reassurance and genuine warmth clear behind his steady gaze. "It will," he said firmly. "And you, Clara, are finally free to live authentically and safely without fear controlling your life any longer." In the weeks following Daniel's arrest, life gradually settled into a peaceful, comfortable rhythm Clara had never truly believed possible. News confirmed that Daniel faced serious criminal charges, not only for his relentless harassment of Clara, but also for similar disturbing patterns discovered against several other women throughout the years. Justice, long overdue, finally caught up with him completely. Clara continued working at the estate. Though her role gradually shifted, Alexander gently encouraging her natural talent for design and organization into something more fulfilling than simple housekeeping duties. She began overseeing event planning and household management, her confidence and genuine happiness growing steadily with each passing day. One peaceful afternoon, Clara sat comfortably within the estate's garden, no longer hiding behind oversized glasses or deliberately plain clothing, her natural beauty and genuine confidence radiating warmly beneath the soft afternoon sun. Alexander joined her, sitting close beside her, his expression calm and genuinely content. "You seem completely at peace today," he observed warmly. "I am," Clara said, smiling brightly. "For the first time in years, I finally feel like myself again, completely and authentically." Alexander studied her carefully, admiration and profound affection clear behind his thoughtful gaze. "Clara, I have been wanting to discuss something important," he said gently. "What is it?" she asked curiously, her heart pounding softly in anticipation. "From the moment I first truly saw you," Alexander began softly, "that unexpected glimpse beyond your careful disguise, I recognized something genuine and remarkable. Watching your courage since then, your resilience, your strength facing Daniel directly despite years of fear, I have fallen completely and genuinely in love with you." Clara's breath caught softly, happiness and warmth spreading rapidly through her entire chest. "I love you too, Alexander," she admitted honestly. "Somewhere between hiding and finally being truly seen, I found myself falling deeply in love with the man who saw beyond my careful disguise from the very beginning. Alexander smiled warmly, genuine happiness completely transforming his usually composed expression. He leaned forward gently, pressing a warm, loving kiss against her lips. Filled with quiet promise and profound happiness, neither had expected to discover through such an unexpected, meaningful journey. When they finally parted, Clara rested her forehead gently against his, contentment and quiet joy settling comfortably between them. "What happens now?" she asked softly, curiosity and hope mixing gently in her voice. "Now," Alexander said warmly, "I would like the opportunity to build a genuine, authentic life together, Clara, free from fear, disguise, or hesitation, filled instead with honesty, respect, and lasting happiness." Clara smiled brightly, joy and gratitude overwhelming her completely. "I would love nothing more." Months later, Clara stood confidently within the same peaceful garden, dressed beautifully for a quiet, intimate wedding ceremony, surrounded by close friends and carefully chosen guests, including Marta, who had become like family throughout Clara's incredible journey toward healing and happiness. She no longer needed thick glasses or plain, unremarkable clothing to feel safe. Instead, she stood radiantly, confidently, fully embracing her authentic beauty and genuine strength. As Clara stood beside Alexander, exchanging heartfelt vows beneath the warm afternoon sun, she reflected quietly on her incredible journey, beginning with painful fear and careful invisibility, and culminating now in genuine happiness, safety, and profound love she had never truly believed she deserved. "Do you, Alexander Cross," the officiant asked warmly, "I take Clara to be your wife, promising genuine love, protection and partnership for as long as you both shall live?" "I do," Alexander said firmly, his eyes filled completely with genuine love and quiet devotion as he gazed warmly toward Clara. "And do you, Clara Bennett," the officiant continued gently, "take Alexander to be your husband, promising genuine love, trust, and partnership for as long as you both shall live?" "I do," Clara said softly, happiness and profound gratitude overwhelming her completely as they exchanged their final, heartfelt vows, sealing their genuine, hard-earned love with a warm, tender kiss. Clara finally understood completely that true safety never came from hiding, but from being genuinely seen, accepted, and loved exactly as she truly was. Standing together now, hand in hand, surrounded by genuine friends and newfound family, Clara and Alexander looked forward confidently toward their shared future, deeply grateful for the unexpected transformative journey that had brought them genuinely, completely together, ready to build a lasting life founded upon trust, authenticity, and profound, unwavering love. Clara often reflected, in quiet, peaceful moments, how remarkable it felt finally living authentically, no longer burdened by fear or the need to hide her true self from the world. Alexander had seen her clearly from their very first meeting, recognizing instantly the genuine beauty and strength she carried within her, long before she had ever believed she deserved to be truly seen again. Their story, beginning with careful disguise and painful fear, had ultimately transformed into something profoundly beautiful, proving clearly that genuine courage, authenticity, and unwavering love could triumph completely over fear, cruelty, and years of painful hiding, allowing two people to finally build a life together, filled entirely with genuine happiness, safety, and profound, lasting love.